Okay, so to prepare for your test tomorrow, we're going to do one of each type of questions. If you want to see more, join me on Google Classroom and I will help you for more. But the first one we're going to do is the greatest common factor of these one. So this is greatest common factor. So I want you to find the greatest common factor between 9x cubed and 72x to the 5th. So 5 questions. Let's write them down and work them out. All right, write down. Work it out. All right, so we're finding the greatest common factor between 9 and 72. If you're not using a special calculator, which I can come give you, then you have to break them all down. So 9 is 1 and 9, 3 and 3, 72, 1 and 72, 2 and 36. I don't know. I think that's right. 3 and, all right, I'm getting lost. Let's check my 2, make sure I didn't mess up. 3 and 24. 72 divided by 2, just to make sure I didn't mess up. Okay. 36. 3, 24, 72 divided by 4. 18. 5 doesn't go into it because it doesn't end in a 5. 6 goes into it because 2 and 3 both go into it. 6 and 12. 7 shouldn't. Decimal doesn't. 72 divided by 8. 8 and 9. The next number I would check would be 9. So multiplies to 72. Here are all your factors all the way up. And multiplies to 9. 1 and 9, 3 and 3. So then we're going to, so what is our greatest common factor of just the numbers? Just focusing on the numbers. What's the biggest number that goes into both of those? 9. A percent for you so you can see what I'm doing. 9 goes into both of these. So here's 9 and 9. And then you have to look at the variables. How many variables do they have in common? This one has 3, right? And this one, oops, has 5. How do you know it's 3? Only have 3 in common. Remember, it's 1 in common, 2 in common, 3 in common. It's always the smallest exponent. So my greatest common factor is 9x cubed. So 9 was the biggest number, and 3 x's is how many they have in common. So make sure you're writing it down. So you're going to divide by your greatest common factor on both. And see what you get. I'm going to make sure you all have some calculators. I don't have to do it. That's okay. You're the one reading your notes. I can read it. That's fine. Yes. You should see some of the handwriting I see. As long as you can read it. We're only gonna do 5 of these. So we're gonna do 5 of these together, and then you're gonna go back and do your own practice individually. So when you divide, what's -9 divided by 9? Use your calculator. What's -9 divided by 9? What's 9 divided by 9? -1. So 9 divided by 9 is 1. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. So x cubed divided by x cubed, you have 3 x's on top, and you have 3 x's on bottom. 1 on top cancels with 1 on bottom. 1 on top cancels with 1 on bottom. 1 on top cancels with 1 on bottom. So none are left. So your x's are just going to all cancel out. The 3 on top cancel with the 3 on bottom. Remember, when you divide, you subtract. 3 minus 3 is 0. So that's why it goes away. What's 72 divided by 9? What'd you say? I think you said it right. 8. You all have calculators. 72 divided by 8. 9. Well, 72 divided by 9, sorry, is 8. And then I have 5 x's on top and 3 on bottom. So when I cancel them out, how many do I have left? 5 on top, 3 on bottom. 2. 2. And so you can always think of it like that, some on top, some on bottom, but it's just subtracting. 5 minus 3 is 2. So with exponents, with variables and exponents, and you're dividing, you subtract. So remember that rule we talked about? You just subtract A minus B. So that's your greatest common factor example. Oh man. What's my answer? I did something wrong. What's my answer? Oh yeah, keep going, 9x 3. Okay. So remember, after you take your greatest common factor out to bring it back in after you factor, because 9x cubed times -1 is negative 9x cubed. 9x cubed times 8x squared is 72x to the 5th. Next one. It's good habit just to see if there's a greatest common factor, 25 and 121. And remember, with the calculators we're allowed to use in the EOC, it can tell you it for you. So is there a greatest common factor between 25 and -121? 1. So my greatest common factor between these two numbers is 1. But if I divide out 1, what's 25 divided by 1? 25. So if your greatest common factor is 1, that's not going to do anything to these numbers. So you can skip that. I told you this is difference of perfect squares. No. We're reviewing this. I told you this is difference of squares on this one, but later on, you need to be able to see its difference of squares. So remember your perfect squares. One times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3. 4 times 4. 5 times 5. 6 times 6. 7 times 7. 8 times 8. 9 times 9. 10 times 10. 11 times 11. Well, I already wrote my two numbers. 25 is a perfect square, and 121 is a perfect square. So we know that this is the difference of perfect squares. So what would A be, what would B be, and what would C be? A would be 25. Nice job. B is 0. B is always the number with x squared. So ax squared plus bx plus c. The b is missing. So that means there had to be a 0 there. And then c, negative 121. And then we go back to how we were always doing. The reverse box method. So we'll multiplies to AC and adds to B. That's going to be a pretty large number, 25 times negative 121. I lost my calculator. So you did, I think so. I'll believe you. 121 negative. Yeah. Negative 3,025. And we're trying to add to B, which is 0. Okay. The only way you can add to 0 if you have the same number and one's positive and one's negative, right? So we need the same number here and here, but one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative. So we're looking for two of the exact same numbers. This only works for difference of squares, but you can take the square root of this large number. And that will give you the number you need to use in blue. In my calculator, the square root is, you have to hit the control button and then x squared. So if you ever want to get to these like blue, or I think yours is yellow. If you look at that yellow calculator, if you want to use these yellow symbols, you have to hit the control button and then that. It's like the shift key on your board. Control, it's x squared next to 4. What we're plugging in, 3025. 55. So just to check, 55 times 55 gives you 3,025. And 55 minus 55 gives me 0. So yeah, 55 works. But this only works for difference of squares. But when the number gets that big, it's nice that you have the shortcut. So in your top box, a squared. In your bottom box, C. And then you use the two numbers that you found. And don't forget to put an X. So we're following the ax squared C times X factor. That's what we're filling in. All right, to save us on time trying to find our greatest common factor, write it all out, let's use the calculator this time. So what is our greatest common factor between 25 and 55? So in our calculator, 25 and 55. Menu, number, greatest common divisor. Menu, number, greatest common divisor. 25. Okay. And if you're at home tomorrow and you're taking your test, I'll show you before you leave a good website to find greatest common divisor. That way you can still be using that. And then how many x's do they have in common? 1. Good on X. So from there, you can just think of either multiplication or division, whichever you prefer. Which do you prefer? Division. Okay, so if we would prefer division, it changes with everyone. To find this box right here, you're going to do 25x squared divided by 5x. That sounded complicated, so let's simplify it and do it 2 steps at a time. So what's 25 divided by 5? 5. X squared divided by x. X squared divided by x. I have 2 x's. I'm taking 1 out. You have 1 left. Yeah. And you can check to make sure you did that right. 5 times 5 is 25. X times x is x squared. So if we're going to do division, negative 55 divided by 5. Negative 55 divided by 5. You're thinking. 11? Is that a question? Oh, okay. Negative 11. Nice. Negative 11. And then x, you had 1 x, you took it out. So this one has 0 x's. You don't need 1 there. Now 55x divided by 5. Again, 11. Are we trying to get negative? No, so it'll be positive. And if you want to check, you can go back. 11 times 5 is 55, and there's the x that goes with it. And then I always like checking the last one. 11 times negative 11 is negative 121. And if you don't trust me, put that in the calculator. When you are factoring, the outside of your box is your answer. The inside of your box is if you're multiplying. In parentheses, 5x 11, 5x negative 11. I can put a 1 in front of that because the greatest common factor is 1, but it doesn't matter. No. There's only one other mistake. Who can catch my mistake? It's the number one mistake I see. What's wrong with a plus sign? Yes, you have to put a plus sign because you have to separate these two terms. I know this is a lot of steps, but once you get these steps, it works for every single type of problem. All right, 3 more with me, and then you can work on your own, and I'll come help you individually. So just working on our factors. I know when they're all positive, it's easier than when it's got some negatives in there. So what two numbers multiply to 10 and add to 7? Anybody but LaShawn, because he's been answering me all morning. What two numbers multiply to 10 and add to 7? Perfect. 5 and 2. Is it the same if I put 2 then 5? Yeah, it is. So 5 and 2. Yep, those are your answers. All right, now it gets a little harder because it multiplies to negative 40 and adds to 3. And 40 has a lot of different factors, so it might be worth writing them all out. So 1 and 40, 2 and 20. Does 3 go into it? No, it doesn't. And on this calculator, because I know some of you are just starting to use this calculator, if you're dividing by 3 to see if it goes into it, and it cuts to another fraction, that means it does it. 4 and 10. 5. 8. I'm not worrying about the negative quite yet, but I will. 6. All right, here's a little trick for 6. 6 is made up of 2 and 3, right? So if 2 and 3 aren't on this list, 6 isn't going to work. What about 7? No, the next number I'd check would be 8. And it's 5. We already knew that. So then there are all of your factors of 40. So all of these multiply to 40, but it has to multiply to a negative 40. So one of them has to be negative. It has to add to 3. So 5 and 8 work. I think you said it right correctly too with your signs. So 5 and 8 work. I'm just going to slow you down. If I'm adding to a positive, I want the bigger number to be positive. If you add to a negative, you want the bigger number to be negative. But here we're adding to a positive, so our bigger number is positive, and the 5 is negative, like you said. And then if you're ever curious, you can check and make sure you did it right. Negative 5 times 8 is negative 40. Negative 5 plus 8. All right, I just said negative 5 plus 8, but that's so much more complicated than 8 minus 5. But it's the same thing. This is the same thing as that. You just can do this one in your head. So it doesn't matter the order I write it in. I could have put the 8 over here and the negative 5 over here so that I can subtract a lot quicker to make sure it's right. No. We're adding to a positive, we want the bigger number to be positive. If you add to a negative, you want the bigger number to be negative. 2 more. Oh, I think, yeah, 2 more with me. And then you can practice individually and I can come help you each. And then we'll work on makeup work for the week. Is there a greatest common factor between 1, 7, and 30? What multiplies to get me 1? 1, right? The only thing that multiplies for 1 is 1 and 1. So that means 1 is my only greatest common factor. So we can skip that. So if your greatest common factor is 1, you can skip the step of taking that out. So we can figure out what A is, what B is, and what C is. You know what multiplies to AC and adds to B. So what's that? 1. Remember, if it's not written, there's an invisible 1 there. -7. -7. Make sure you take the sign with it. -7. -30. So A times C is 1 times -30. Which is just -30. And adds to B, -7. You got it? Nice. I'm gonna wait just a little minutes, a little bit longer. Four going to 30? No. Which one, if I made negative, could add to a -7? 3, 10. So 3 and 10. Not both, because a negative times a negative would give me a positive. We only want one of them to be negative. All right, if the 3 is negative, hold on, if the 3 is negative, -3 plus 10 is +7. We want it to be negative. So let's try 3 plus -10 is -7. Yes. So if you're not sure, you can just guess on the calculator and try it out. So my 3 has to be positive and my 10 has to be negative. So this is wrong. My 3 has to be positive and my 10 has to be negative. If you're adding to a negative number, your bigger number has to be negative. I'm going to put the 3 down here and the -10 up here. What multiplies to x squared? What are these two numbers going to be? What does x squared and negative 10x have in common? They both have an x. X squared divided by x, 1x. And you can put the 1 there if you want. Having ones there is fine. So negative 10 divided by 1, negative 10. 3 divided by 1, 3. And just to check that we did it right, 3 times negative 10 is negative 30. 3 times negative 10 is negative 30. So we did it right. So our answers are always on the outside. So here are my answers. And we didn't take a greatest common factor out because it was 1, so we don't need to write that in correct. All right, one more with me. Go back. All right, this is called mixed multi-step factoring. That means there is going to be a greatest common factor, and then we're going to have to factor more. So this is what we learned yesterday, in like the super long step. It takes longer than the other ones. So what is my greatest common factor? What number do they have all in common? 1, 11, and 30. 1, 11, and 30. What's the biggest number they have in common? Yeah, 1. This just has a 1, this has a 1, and this has a 1. So they all have a 1 in common. What else do they have in common? Use how many? 2. It's always the smallest exponent. So this has 4, this has 3, this has 2. What else do they have in common? They're all negative, so we're going to take out a negative. So that's my greatest common factor. Negative 1u squared. It's bothering me that list wasn't complete. Okay, so we're dividing. What's negative 1 divided by negative 1? Negative divided by negative? Positive. Yeah. I have 4 u's on top. I'm taking 2 of them away. So there's 2. A negative 11 divided by a negative positive 11. I have 3 u's on top. I'm taking 2 away. 1. Negative 30 divided by negative 1. Positive 30. I have 2 u's. I'm taking 2 away. 0. So they go away. And now we do the box. So A, 1. You're using this one, the one we just did. B. A is 1. Yes. So 1 times 30 is 30. And what adds to 11? Natalie, did you have a question? Let's finish this question. Is that okay? Okay. I already have all the factors of 30 up here for you. 5 and 6. So when you put them in your box, remember the format I want you to be using. Ax squared, c, and then the numbers you chose have to be multiplied by x. So the numbers I chose was 5 and 6. It doesn't matter the order. I'm just trying to, you put the 5 there or the 6 here. It doesn't matter. Oh, use. We're using use. Was that still too long? All right. Say that your come back. U squared and 6u. What do they have in common? They both have a u. One u. So I'm going to take a u out. So I have 2 u's in the box. I took 1 out here. How many do I have left? 1. Yep. 6 times u. It's going to be 6 because I took my u out, so I'm just left with my number. 5 times u. Going to be 5. 5u divided by 5 gives me u. And then 5 times 6 gives me 30. Negative. U squared. Squared. Yeah. Negative 1u squared was my greatest common factor, so don't forget to bring that in. And then your answers are on the side as well. So negative 1u squared, u plus 5, u plus 6. And there's one of each.